Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tee to Green Golf Podcast, hosted by Victor Patterson. This episode is our 2024 Masters Preview. We are honored today to have a partner to the Tee to Green Golf Podcast and the Masters Preview. Today we have with us Hunter Clay. Hunter is currently a PGA associate working to become a PGA class member. And so we're bringing expertise to get you ready for the Masters, scheduled for August 11th to the 14th. Hunter, welcome to the Tee to Green Golf Podcast. We're happy to have your expertise with us this year. We're going to go over a few aesthetic things this year. And Hunter, as you know, the Masters is apt for making changes year in and year out. I think they do a really good job of understanding how the tournament played and the course played the year prior. And they are typically good at tweaking the course, making it a little bit more challenging for the year ahead. This year, we know that they have tinkered with hole number 2. And so what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so they tinkered with pink dogwood, second hole out at Augusta National. It's a par 5, and it's the first time in 25 years that they've changed this hole.
Just had to do it.
Yeah, I guess it was about time. The stroke average last year was 4.64, so if you were a leader and you weren't birdieing the hole, you were almost losing half a shot. It's the second easiest hole all time, averaging 4.78. And what they did to make this hole a little bit more challenging is they moved the tee box back into the left. So this is going to favor the longer hitters a little bit more, who are able to draw the ball and get an easier second shot into that downhill green. I think it'll definitely make it tougher for most guys. We'll see just how much tougher it makes it as the tournament goes on. But I think this is a good change and helps make the course a little more challenging.
What will that do to the golfer that isn't as comfortable with the draw, likes to play the fade? Are we going to have some challenges on the left side of that hole?
Yeah, so moving it back into the left, 10 yards is pretty significant difference when you're talking about the narrowness of the fairway, and moving it back is going to bring that bunker more into play. So it's going to make it a lot tougher for guys who cut the ball. Scheffler in particular, he doesn't like to hit the driver with a draw, but I don't foresee it being a huge challenge for him as well as he's been playing.
Well, listen, they've got about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks right now to get their games together and make their way to Augusta National. And so what we're going to do right now is we're going to kind of lean in and Hunter and I, we've spent quite a bit of time looking at how these particular golfers are playing this year, really our anticipation about where their game will be leading into the Masters, April 11th to the 14th at Augusta National Golf Course in Augusta, Georgia. Right now, our favorites are Scotty Scheffler, Jon Rahm, Xander Schauffele, Wyndham Clark, and Brooks Koepka. So we've got a nice mix of PGA Tour members and Live Golf members. And so, Hunter, where do we sit right now on those individuals? What are your thoughts about their game today and leading in? How are they performing leading into to the Masters?
Yeah, so you got the odds-on favorite, obviously, Scotty Scheffler, previous winner. Out of our list, we have 3 previous winners. 2 previous winners. Brooks didn't quite capture the Masters yet.
Right.
I foresee him doing that in the future for sure. So we got Scotty Scheffler. He's having the best ball striking year of anyone. In strokes gained, he's gaining about 3 shots on the field every time he steps on the course. So that's a pretty incredible statistic.
Absolutely.
Especially this early in the year.
Absolutely.
His putting hasn't been stellar, but you've got to keep in mind it's before the putter switch. So you look at him at Phoenix and a couple of the other courses to where if he putted well, he might have captured a couple more wins. He switched to that mallet, Spider Tour X, with a plumber's neck, and he seems to be liking that. He's currently 89th on tour in putting, which is right around middle of the road. Technically, he's losing a tenth of a shot to the field on putting. So if he can keep the putter hot, I don't see how he couldn't win. Rory said the other week at the Players, like, if he gets hot, we're playing for second.
Yeah, and I would say this, last year at this time, I talked about John Rahm being the great chaser. And I think what we are starting to see right now is that Scotty Scheffler is the great chaser. And I think the work that he did at the Players should be concern for all of his peers in that his ball striking is unquestionable.
Yeah.
And he seems to lock in on Saturday and Sunday if he's within reach of the lead.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at his last 4 finishes, including the last 5, I mean, you got a win at the Players, a win at the AP, T10 at the Genesis, tied for 3rd at Phoenix, and tied for 6th at Pebble Beach. So, I mean, he's been playing great golf. There's no other way to put it. Definitely a Tiger-esque type run.
Correct.
But we'll see if he can keep it up.
Absolutely, absolutely. Next on our list is Joaquin Niemann, and I know that in our conversations, you're pretty high on Joaquin coming in.
Very. I mean, he's 25 years old, Chilean golfer, and he's wicked hot right now. I mean, he's had 3 worldwide wins within the past year. I guess the Australian Open was technically December, but I mean, he's got a 59 in there. He's playing lights out golf. I mean, his last 4, he's had 14th in Hong Kong, 5th at Jeddah, 8th in Vegas, and 3rd at Mayakoba. So he's. Oh, I'm sorry, I was reading Rahm's. Last 4 for Niemann, he's 4th in Hong Kong, 1st at Jeddah, 33rd in Vegas, and 1st at Mayakoba. So 2 live wins on there. He's 2nd in greens and regulation on the live tour and 8th in putting average. I mean, I feel like at Augusta, you hit greens, make putts, going to be up top of the leaderboard. He finished T16 last year, but I think he can definitely improve on that.
In fact, I like that last year's stat. I think one of the things that I like about him is when he's in rhythm, he is consistently in the fairways. I think his putting stats play well for him, especially coming into Augusta. We know that if anything stands out as the great defender of that golf course, it's the greens.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he seems like he's ready. His putting statistics and his performance are ready for that show in a few weeks.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Moving on to our friend, the gentleman that had such a strong year, but decided to go for about 600 large and move to Live Golf Tour, John Rahm.
And you're not talking about thousands, you're talking about millions.
Absolutely.
So, can't say I blame him. It's a great opportunity for him to make a lot of money. But John Rahm, I mean, he's been having a decent year so far. I just read his stats. He's had some top 5 finishes. He's 2nd on live in greens and regulation, and he's 21st in putting. We saw him switch to the AI1. He's still been putting fairly well. But if you look at Rahm last year, I mean, really, really good run on the PGA Tour, won the Masters. I mean, he was definitely my favorite on tour before he left, and I think you'd be silly not to put him as a favorite.
I couldn't agree more, and I think the chip on the shoulder right now with live golfers, particularly those that we're most familiar with, is the visibility that the Masters gives them. We saw Brooks make a run last year, and we'll talk about him shortly. But we know Rombo had a really, really good year. He was as consistent and passionate about winning the non-majors as he was the majors. I think the decision has put him more in the middle of the Live PGA right now, and this may be a little bit of vindication for him. So I don't anticipate a drop-off in his passion, in that, that Spaniard drive, if you will, that Spaniard attitude, if you will, coming into the Masters. So it'll be interesting to see how his game fares, knowing that we haven't seen it for about 3.5, 4 months.
Yep.
To the Tee to Green Golf podcast community, next on our list is Xander Schauffele. And Xander was leading and really competitive for three 3 of the rounds last week at the Players. Kind of flamed out, if you will, on Sunday. And going back to 2023, this was also my position on Xander. I think his game is extremely solid, tee to green. He does a really, really good job in rounds 1 to 3. But for some reason, he's just been unable to close the deal. And we see his final round Sundays higher than the average of those that are competing for the title and winning. What are you seeing from Xander this year, Hunter?
To be honest, Xander is definitely my favorite player on tour right now. He's striking the ball really well. Like you said, hasn't been able to close the deal, but I foresee that coming soon. Xander's a great player. This year on tour, he has strokes gained about 2 shots on the field.
Nice.
Average. His putting is middle of the road. It's at 80th, but we all know as golfers that the flat stick can get hot at any time.
Absolutely.
I mean, even in your Saturday games,
Right.
It could get hot and make you some money, right?
Right.
But his last 5 finishes have been tied for second at the Players, T25 at the AP, T4 at the Genesis, and T54 at Pebble, T9 at the Farmers. He also finished top 3 at the Amex.
Okay.
So, I mean, he's getting right there.
Right.
He's making cuts consistently. His game has definitely been consistent this year. Can we get the flat stick hot going into the weekend at the Masters?
Right. I think the other thing that I saw last week that I saw at times in the past, and so Xander is really good at working the ball off the tee box. He's good right to left, left to right. What I have seen in my concern is that when he's in that moment, when he needs that Thursday, Friday driver, he either pulls it left or he sprays it right and gets himself in a little bit of trouble. So I'm hopeful that post the Players and leading up to the Masters, that driver is locked in for him for 4 rounds and not just 3.
Yeah, I definitely think that's why he's playing so much. He's playing at the Valspar this week as well. He's the highest ranked player in the field. I feel like he's just honing his game. If we look at Copperhead, a lot of tight fairways.
Correct.
Played that course several times, and definitely off the tee is very important there. So I think Xander's just gearing up his game, getting ready to pick his spots at Augusta and go attack.
Nice. Wyndham Clark. This is someone who continues to be on a steady rise as a golfer. One of the things that I like about Wyndham is that he seems to be in the moment with his game. His game seems to be really solid from tee to green right now. And where there's opportunity to improve, he improves on that. He was competitive last week at the Players as well. And so what are you seeing from Wyndham right now?
I mean, we were barely so close to a playoff at the Players. I just felt heartbreak on that putt. We've all been there. And Wyndham, in my opinion, you're right, steady rise. He's definitely a top 5 player on tour. Had a win at the Wells Fargo, Quail Hollow last year, win at the U.S. Open, LACC, and he's playing well this year. I mean, his last 5, he had a T2 at the Players, second place at the AP Invitational. He missed the cut at the Genesis. He's finished T41 at Phoenix, but he also won at Pebble. We remember that 54-hole event.
That's right.
Where he got really hot. So he did switch the putter, very similar. He took a top line off of it and switched to the AI1 face.
Okay.
So his putting's been good this year. I mean, he's 14th on tour, gaining over a half a shot on the field every time he steps out with the putter. So, I mean, if we can see Wyndham putt like he did at LACC and continue to strike the ball well, I don't see why he wouldn't be a favorite.
Yeah, I like that fact about Pebble. Not to discount LACC because it was a really tough track, but I think Pebble is the type of course that if you can play well there, a lot of takeaways apply to a major, particularly a Masters. And so that's a really good point that we attach to Wyndham Clark. as one of our favorites going into the Masters, and so we'll look forward to his steady play over the last few months and see if he can put himself in a position to secure a green jacket.
Yeah.
Next on our list, and this is the final of our favorites, is Brooks Koepka. We know that Brooks had a really successful 2023 in the limelight of the PGA Tour. So outside of the light of LIV, he performed well at the Masters and ultimately ended up winning a major later last year. Solid, represented the U.S. At the Ryder Cup and showed that gut and grind, that collaboration with his former peers, if you will. What are we seeing from Brooks, and why do we have him as listed as a favorite?
To be honest, Vic, when I watched that episode of Full Swing last year, it kind of showed me his drive to win the Masters. I think he's always a favorite. I mean, he's an incredible golfer. He hasn't got off to a great start this year playing on LIV. I mean, his green in regulations is high. He's sixth on LIV. He's hitting about 75% of his greens.
Okay.
His putting is kind of middle of the road. He's averaging 1.6 per round. But as we know, Brooks Koepka gets active for the majors.
Absolutely.
We've seen it when he was on the PGA Tour. He always steps up to the plate. He had an incredible performance at Oak Hill, edging out Scheffler, and I think Brooks has to be a favorite, especially with that big lead last year that he had at the Masters.
I would agree with you. And so to the community, we've given you our favorites, Scheffler, Neiman, Rahm, Xander Schauffele, Wyndham Clark, and Brooks Koepka. Next, we're going to go to our sleepers. And again, this is a group that maybe the limelight isn't as bright, but we certainly think that their game is solid in 2024, and they should be considered. We're going to talk about Chris Kirk. We're going to talk about Will Zalatoris, someone that I was high on last year before the injury. We're going to talk about Jason Day. Let's talk a little bit about Chris Kirk. What do you like about Chris, Hunter?
Oh, Chris is a hometown guy. He's from the same town I grew up in. Known a couple people around Chris. Haven't got to meet him yet, but he's definitely one of my favorite players on tour. I mean, his tempo is so good under pressure, and that bodes well for Augusta. His iron game is really solid. He hasn't played so well since winning the Tournament of Champions. His best finish has been T26, but he's gaining a shot on the field on average with strokes gained, and his putting has been a little shaky since the TOC. He's 139th on tour, but as we know, we've seen Chris Kirk for a while now on tour. Yep. His putter is very good.
Yep.
And I think on those fast greens, Chris definitely has a chance to drop some bombs. So.
I would agree with that, and I think he is rightfully positioned on our list as a sleeper. When we think about the next, Will Zalatoris, and for those in the Tee to Green Golf podcast community, I've been high on Will. I'm sorry that he went through the injury, but Will has always been a solid ball striker.
Oh, most definitely.
And I think now that he's come off the injury and his body seems to be in a good place, swing has changed a little bit to take some of the pressure off of his back. We've still seen some good signs of solid ball striking. I think the putter is improving a little bit more. And what are we seeing in Will there, Hunter?
I mean, to me personally, the only reason we have Will as a sleeper is because of the injury.
Correct.
I mean, he's still getting back his groove. Missed the cut at the Players, but he finished T4 at the AP Invite, T2 at the Genesis, and a T13 finish at the Farmers. I mean, Will knows how to do it with the best of them.
Absolutely.
I think it's just a matter of time before he wins a major. He's shown now, I've seen him play enough events that he has the stamina to go all 4 rounds and win the tournament. But like you said, with the broomstick putter, switching putters to that Lab, we'll see how he can hold up. I mean, Lab's a very good company, as we saw with Lucas Glover and Grayson Murray winning earlier this year. But we'll see how it transitions for Zalatoris, and if he can get some longer two putts to fall and make a couple inside 30 feet, I think he's right there.
In fact, I like that. I think his finishes this year that you just highlighted to me are a sign that he's comfortable with where his body is. And in some respects, that's more important than any other technical aspect of the golf game because he can just let himself go and be Will as we came to know Will. So we'll definitely keep our eyes on that. The putter he seems to be more comfortable with. The takeaway and the follow through is less curious than it was.
Yes, the weighting seems right. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if he can get him to drop, he's dangerous.
Last on our sleeper list is Jason Day. Again, someone who has found his way back. Also familiar with a back injury and all that it takes to really get himself back to playing quality golf again. We saw a lot of that middle of the summer to late last year, and I think he's kept that momentum going into 2024. Let's talk a little bit about Jason Day.
Well, Jason Day, strokes gain, he's gaining about a shot on the field.
That's
so
big.
he's striking the ball well.
Right.
His putting is slightly better than average. He's gaining about 0.3 shots on the field. So, I mean, if we see Jason Day, he switched back to that original spider, and he seems comfortable with it.
Right.
And when guys get comfortable, guys get dangerous.
Absolutely.
Looking at his last couple finishes, he had some top 40s at the Players and the AP Invite, but he finished 9th at the Genesis and T6 at Pebble.
Okay.
I mean, if you're in the top 10, you're right there. Jason Day's played Augusta many times.
Correct.
I could definitely see Jason Day with like a top 15 finish and definitely being in contention going into the weekend.
Beautiful. Those are our sleepers, Jason Day, Chris Kirk, and Will Zalatoris. Right now we're going to have a conversation about those names that resonate from coast to coast, from sea to sea. And one of those individuals is a Masters champ. The other is really working to win the Masters. But we're going to talk about these individuals as potentials, despite the fact that we believe that their season has been a little bit inconsistent thus far. Those individuals are Rory McIlroy, former Masters champion Phil Mickelson, and Bryson DeChambeau. We'll talk a little bit about Rory right now. And, Hunter, what are we seeing from Rory this year?
Personally, to me, I like Rory a lot.
Absolutely.
And to me, we've heard all the big names in golf talk about it. He seems a little bit distracted between his media coverage and talking about LIV and the state of the PGA Tour. He's kind of become the face of the Players,
right,
you could say. But Rory, to me, he's having a little bit of off-year ball striking, which is crazy because he's still top third in the Tour. He's ranked 40th in ball striking, gaining over a half a shot on the field.
Yeah.
And we consider that an off year
right.
for Rory. So,
Right.
He's a really good player. He's middle of the road in putting, 83rd on tour. His last 5 finishes have been T19 at the Players, T21 at the AP Invite, T24 at the Genesis, T21 at the Cognizant, T66 at Pebble. So he's been kind of middle of the pack. We've seen him get hot in some rounds. We've seen him get cold in some rounds. We talk about Rory as a favorite every year to win the Masters.
We do.
Can he capture the 5th major? Can he complete the career Grand Slam? And people are saying that he's running out of chances. He's getting older, but to me, Rory has been a generational player. And Augusta National tends to reward really good play on the greens and really good ball striking. So, if he can find some consistency for 4 days, he's in contention.
The only thing that I would add to that, and this has been my observation of Rory for as long as I've liked him, much like you, his ability to hit the ball off the tee is unquestionable.
Oh, absolutely.
I think he's been a little bit scattered this week, or this year rather. The thing that I want him to conquer is his short game. Whether it's 125 and in, whether it's 80 and in, whether it's 60 and in. And for Rory, oftentimes that's a gap wedge. It's a lob wedge. And as you know, being an accomplished player, when those two clubs are in your hand, it should be about 10, 15 feet max and
Yes.
in. So I am looking for Rory to improve on that as he heads into the Masters. In addition to that, it's important for Rory to find consistency with his ability to read the putt, to trust the green, and to give a consistent stroke. Right now, he's burning edges. He's either top or he's low. And to your point earlier, I think that takes him from a very strong 65 on Thursday to a Saturday where it's at 72, and he's lost traction to the field. I know how important it is for him to win the Masters right now. It really is the only thing that he hasn't captured. So can he keep the tournament in perspective? I know that that is easier said than done.
Absolutely.
But can he find himself in a balanced emotional state where his game allows him to be the Rory that we know he is? That's what I'll be looking for. You know, next on our list is Bryson DeChambeau. Again, somebody who physically has gone through a transformation, but seemingly returned himself back to what his natural form is. Bryson is in some ways been kind of the Robin to Rory's Batman in terms of the conversation around LIV and the PGA. Bryson has been less spoken than Rory has. But again, as it pertains to golf, this is someone who has spoken out about the right or the belief that LIV golfers should be playing in the majors and in this environment. Long hitter, very much in the same mold as a Rory McIlroy in terms of club selection and distance. What do we think about Bryson right now?
He's a long hitter.
Big time.
He can work the ball both ways.
Yes.
I think that's a huge advantage for him at Augusta. He can kind of bully the course a little bit.
Yeah, right.
Now, with that being said, some of his comments in years past, par 67 and whatnot, the course has kind of humbled him a little bit.
Absolutely.
I think since Bryson has been a professional golfer, he's matured an extreme amount. I really don't think he feels that way anymore. I think he feels like the course is going to give you what it's going to give you. He still plays his style of game to where he's aggressive, but I think expectations-wise, he's humbled himself a little bit to the fact to where he can go accomplish anything. We saw 58 at Greenbrier last year. He's kind of had a pretty decent year this year on LIV. I mean, he's finished 7th, 4th, 11th, 26th.
Okay.
So he's trending better in his last couple events. And he's 5th on LIVs, hitting 75% of his greens. And his putting average is kind of middle of LIV at 1.6. So if we can see Bryson game plan this course well,
Nice.
I think we could see Bryson holding the trophy at the end.
Yeah, I like that. I think the game plan is the right word for that. So we'll keep an eye on Bryson. Last but certainly not least is former Masters champion Phil Mickelson. Hunter, we've had a lot of conversation about Phil, and Phil certainly has garnered a lot more conversation from the golf world since arguably being the face of the separation between LIV and the PGA Tour. As we've discussed, his season hasn't been something to talk about, but we know as a former Masters champion, we know that Phil likes the banter that goes on, and playing well and potentially winning at the Masters could swing the banter to his favor. We know he likes to play in that space. Where do we sit on Phil right now?
We've seen older guys finish well in the Masters before, especially past champions.
Great point.
What I kind of respect about Phil is he's taken on the villain role, and he hasn't turned back. As much as you might disagree with him or not like him, he's one of the greatest golfers of all time.
Unquestionable.
His putter in the past has gotten hot at Augusta before.
Correct.
We saw an extremely impressive Sunday last year
We did.
where he finished second. So I think that Phil's one of the biggest names in golf. We haven't heard much from him recently. He's either finishing last or top 10 this year so far, but I wouldn't ever count Phil out if he's showing up to Augusta.
I completely agree with you. I completely agree with everything that you said, especially in the way that you close that out. I don't think that you can count him out. And one of the things that we say in sports is winners know how to win. And this is a course that he clearly figured out. And so we'll look for Phil to kind of be in that space competitively, despite what his year has been thus far. So now that we transition to if lightning strikes in a bottle, these are the golfers that we believe have the game to hoist the green jacket on Sunday. We're going to talk about Patrick Cantlay. We're going to talk about Sam Burns. We're going to talk about Cam Smith. And right now, we've been able to find a DP World Tour / PGA Tour member, and that is Nikolai Hogard, somebody that I talked about a number of times in season 2023, leading up to and after the Ryder Cup. So we'll give you our perspective on this lightning in a bottle group. Hunter, let's talk about Patrick Cantlay. What are we seeing from him right now?
Kind of middle of the road. He played really well in the California
He
stint.
sure did.
This year on tour, he's 92nd in strokes gained and 52nd in putting. So he's kind of been a middle of the road player on tour so far. But we saw a T4 at Genesis and a T11 at Pebble.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that Patrick Cantlay can't find his stride. I think some things will have to go right for him to win this week. He can work the draw very well with the driver, which I think helps him out a good bit, especially on the front nine.
Correct.
I think if things go right, you could see Patrick Cantlay winning the tournament.
If lightning strikes in a bottle, absolutely, absolutely. And I think he can be steady with the putter as well.
Absolutely.
I do worry about him being distracted. As a player director right now, he has really kind of stepped up in that role seemingly. And I think, maybe that's part of the reason we're seeing a little bit of inconsistency in his game from the West Coast to this Florida swing and then up into Georgia in the month of April. You know, next on our list is Sam Burns, and we talked about Sam a little bit earlier, LSU guy, and I know that I got a smile from you. And Sam's off to a slow start. So what are we seeing from Sam right now?
I mean, I feel like Sam Burns has all the talent in the world.
Big time.
Won back-to-back at the Valspar a couple years ago, and he's a really good player. I mean, he's stroke gained. He's 20th gaining a shot on the field. He's 18th in putting. I mean, he's consistently been a top 20 player on tour this year. He hasn't done well in the Florida swing with the T45 at the Players, the T30 at the AP, but he did play well at the Genesis, finishing T10. Played well in Phoenix, finished T3. Sam Burns has been using the AI1 a little bit longer, so he's a little bit more comfortable with that putter.
Okay.
I think, like you said, if things go right, if lightning strikes, we see Sammy B in contention on the back nine on Sunday.
Yeah, I love that. Is it going to be the Sam Burns that we saw on the West Coast, or is it going to be the Sam Burns that we saw and are seeing in the state of Florida? Only time will tell, but if lightning strikes in a bottle, Sam Burns will be hoisting the jacket on Sunday. We move to Cam Smith, and again, Hunter, I know this is someone that you're high on, someone that we've had some conversation about. We know that before Cam made that transition, he was really trending.
Yeah.
I think the early days of his transition to live, we saw a little bit of fall off, but where do we see Cam right now?
In my opinion, Cam Smith is a top 5 putter in the world.
Yep. Agreed.
His flat stick is something to be really impressed by. I was inspired by him. I actually model my routine of putting a little bit after him.
Nice.
And it's worked out well for me so far. Cam Smith, he is hitting about 65% of his greens, so he's not hitting as many greens, but he can rely on that putter, as we've seen. He finished third in Hong Kong, but other than that, he's kind of been middle of the road, finished 10th at Mayakoba. So he hasn't been playing hot, but, I mean, we know Cam Smith. We saw him in 2020
Correct.
at the Masters, trailed Justin Johnson. I think Cam Smith is a phenomenal player. If he has a good ball striking week, we know the putter's going to be hot. So there's that lightning in a bottle in the flat stick.
Bingo. If lightning strikes in a bottle. And excited that we have a DP World Tour / PGA Tour selection with us in Nikolai Hogard. And this is someone that I talked about a number of times, has a brother Rasmus that plays on the DP World Tour. Both of them are really, really solid golfers. Nikolai took the leap and moved forward to being competitive and playing on the PGA Tour last year. Had a solid showing at the Ryder Cup. I'm still high on him in the present and the future. So what are we seeing from Nikolai?
Well, the thing with Nikolai is he's extremely young.
Extremely.
I like Nikolai a lot. I mean, I think he's a phenomenal player. He's been a little bit worse than average on tour this year in terms of ball striking and putting. He missed the cut at the Players, missed the cut at the AP Invite. Best finish this year I've seen has been T39 at the Genesis. But he did finish second at the Farmers. So Nikolai, he's a player that if he gets hot, he gets going.
Correct.
And I think the Masters is a really good opportunity for Nikolai to submit himself as one of the top players in the world.
I like that.
I think he's inspired to play this tournament in terms of being one of those guys that's talked about more.
I like that.
We did hear that Nikola got an offer from Liv and turned it down because his reasoning was he wanted to play in the majors. So we know how bad he wants to play in and win these tournaments. If things go right with Nikola, he gets the jailbird rolling.
Yeah.
We might see him on Sunday.
If lightning strikes in a bottle, we have given you 4 golfers that we believe, based on their performance and largely based on their ability to putt, that we believe could be wearing the green jacket on Sunday. We're excited to bring to you, the Tee to Green Golf Podcast community, this Masters preview. Honored to have with us this year for the Masters, Hunter Clay, PGA associate member. I call him Mr. 59 because I know that he has done that. He's shot 59 over 18 holes. We look forward to coming back to you all post-Masters to give you a wrap-up and everything that was good and not so good about this year's 2024 Masters Tournament. We send a thank you to Hunter Clay. We send thanks to Canon Studios. And as we always say, hit it straight from Tee to Green. We are out.